The other thing that I think is the most important thing for everyone in here to understand is you have to trust your instincts. And you want your employees to trust their instincts. If their body, if the hair on the back of their neck is standing up and telling them they're in harm's way, they need to trust their instincts and understand that, and that's the way they need to approach it. And then the other thing is, the biggest thing you or your employees can do is to de-escalate yourself. So if you have someone come into your place of business or into your office and they start yelling, what is your response more likely to be? Yeah, I'm going to yell back. Now you got two people yelling. Where's this going to go? Yeah, it's just, again, the irritation and everything else is just climbing, isn't it? And the pressure's cooking as well. It's okay that you fell into the trap, but you need to recognize, and your people need to recognize they fell into the trap. Once they've fallen into the trap, and they recognize that, they need to pull themselves out, get control of themselves, engage with the other person, but they need to refocus in on what the problem is, and they need to start controlling themselves, de-escalate themselves. So the best thing you can do is remain calm. Because if you get heightened and you're upset and they're upset, is anybody going to make a good decision? How many people, when they really get irritated and are upset, make the best decisions in the world, right? We don't. We make the best decisions when we're calm and thinking things through and we're not allowing things to hit us on that heightened emotional state. So beware of your actions and beware of your body posture, because this also adds to that communication. So you may be saying one thing, but if your hands are on your hip or you're closing rank and you're in that person's bubble, that's creating more pressure into the situation. And so you do have some verbal strategies here that you can work with. Part of that is controlling your paraverbals. Now, I had to look this up, to be honest with you, because I thought paraverbals, I've never heard that word before. It is a word. And what that means is that you get to control your speech to a certain extent. So you control your tone, your volume, and your inflection, and also the rate. The other thing is that inflection, I think, is important, because sometimes we'll try and say something, but the way we say it really has it. I did not say you were stupid. You believe me? No, because I put I think you're stupid, basically, is what I said to you, because of where my inflections were. So understand that it's more than just the words is what we're trying to get across to you, okay? Be respectful, and it's and no harm, no foul. If you're not, you know, this is one of my bad habits. I have a lot of bad habits, by the way. But this is one of my bad habits, is when I'm talking to someone and someone's trying to get an idea across to me, I'm real quick to jump on and try and see, you know, okay, I think I understand, you're going here. No, I'm not going there. Okay, then sometimes I have to pull back and I have to say, okay, help me understand what your issue is. I need to understand where you're coming from, and apparently I'm not getting it. So help me understand that. What exactly are you trying to say? And I think that's important that they hear that, because if they hear that, that means you're trying to listen to them. And in most cases, that's really what the person wants in the first place, isn't it? So then when you get into the crisis mode, now you're just trying to endure things and endure it. So the first thing you want to do is, if you can, execute your exit. So if you're meeting with someone and they're getting out of control, or even if it's a coworker or something like that, get away from the situation, let things calm down. If you can, call for help. But if you have to, go into crisis mode. And that's where, you know, in years past, what we talked about is what we wanted people to barricade first. That was the first thought. Close your door, barricade the room, lock everything down, protect yourself, whatever you can do. Well, then the thought became, yeah, but you're stuck in the building, and this is where we saw a lot of people. If it goes to that worst case scenario, this is where a lot of people got hurt, because they were still in the building. So if you can get out of the building, we want you out of the building, okay? We want you to get out. So that's the first step, is if you can escape, if you can run, get out of the building, if you can do it safe, okay? Now the next one in there is hide. Then if you can't get out, now barricade yourself in. Try and make yourself the smallest target possible. Find a place where they wouldn't see you, or behind locked doors or something along those lines. And if then that area is compromised, and we saw this with United 93 at 9/11, right? This has changed the ball game a little bit, because we all approached it before 9/11. We all approached it to a certain extent, believing that this was more of a hostage situation than it was where it was violent action taken. Well, then once we realize that people are doing more of the violent stuff now, what is our action going to be? We're going to approach it that we're going to fight back. We're not going to take it, because if you sit back and become docile, more than likely you're going to get hurt anyway. So what's the purpose in doing that? So to be honest with you, I want you first to escape, then I want you to hide if you have to, and then as a last resort, that's where I want you to fight. But if there's no other recourse, then you have to fight. And I think that this is something that we're seeing a little bit different in our society now. And again, whenever you're putting these presentations together, and now you got the heightened awareness of all these different things coming out. It was what? The end of April that they had a shooting at the Thurston High School in Lacey, Washington. And again, kid brought a gun to school and he started firing it up in the air and the kids started scattering. You're not seeing the teachers running anymore except to the problem. So this teacher was the closest, so he tackled the kid and then they pulled the gun away from him. What happens when the rescue guys get there, the cops get there, law enforcement's there now? How do you want people to respond to this? Because, you know, a lot of us are relieved. All of a sudden we've gone through a real high pressure situation. Law enforcement shows up. What do we want to do? Show them we have nothing in our hands, because if they see something in our hands, there's been friendly fire, because those guys are not in there to necessarily to evacuate us or take care of the injured. They're in there to get the shooter. They're looking for whoever has a gun. So the first thing you want to do is show your hands. Next thing you're going to do is follow whatever the instructions are that you're given from them. Answer their question. Once you get to that recovery mode, depending on the severity, depending on the impact on individual workers, you may need crisis folk, but you may never get back to where you originally were as an organization, because it's kind of one of those things that stays with the organization for a long period of time and affects everyone in there. And it's long term. Sometimes, you know, people react differently, but a lot of people, even if it's a small event, PTSD can kick in. So what would you want to see in a prevention program? I think it's important that you understand this. These three things: detect, assess, and manage. And I think that this is where it's really important for you guys to understand this, that when we talk about perceptions, I'm not saying we're trying to make our people happy 100% of the time, because you can't do it. And I don't think that we need to hide under that political correctness thing. Well, it's just their perception, so that's just the political correct way of saying it. No, what we're talking about is you detect when people are doing the pressure cooker, when we see the causal factors starting to come into play, when we get indications from people that they're struggling with what they're dealing with, we need to be able to detect that. And then once we detect it, then we need to assess it. And then once we determine the severity, now we can manage that a little bit better. And in some cases, we need to find a way to work. We can't make one size fits all, though. That's the one thing I struggle with the most, because you can't just have one approach that works for everyone, because we're all different. So if you're going to manage things, you have to manage things on more of an individual level, and that's where people get frustrated. I think that's where management gets frustrated to a certain extent, because they look at it and they say, you know what? I don't have time to deal with everyone. But I think you're foolish if you believe that you're going to get by without addressing those things.